Pay attention, 007, as it's our James Bond special. Will Best goes on a Q branch car pilgrimage.
A DB5.
Alex Riley has found a Sean Connery Bond car you can buy for £5,000.
Positively shocking.
Bond stunt driver Ben Collins reveals 007's first Aston.
It's a wonderful car, though. It's so full of charm.
And I drive the 1970s icon ideal for underwater spying.
Woohoo!
Welcome to the Classic Car Show. We are in our usual secret lair underneath the Brooklands racetrack, and you are in luck, because this is our James Bond special.
It certainly is indeed, and I have to say we both made quite a big effort. You look absolutely dashing. Anyway, we have to find out first which James Bond car has made it on to the list of Quentin's all-time classics. So, Quence, I think you remind me a little bit of James Bond. Tall, dark, suave, well-dressed.
With a license to kill.
Well, I think more like a license to keel over. Sorry. It was good, though, come on.
Yes.
Yeah, it was good, that was a good one.
Do you know, there are times when I wish when we'd ordered this so far, we had specified an ejector seat. The car I have chosen is quite simply the most famous car in the world, bar none. Behind these doors is the world's best-loved classic car. So, is it an E-Type Jag? Is it a Ferrari 250 GTO? Is it a Mini Cooper? No. This is the most recognizable automotive silhouette in the whole wide world. This is the King Kong of classic cars.
It is, of course, the Aston Martin DB5. Just 13 minutes of screen time in the James Bond films Goldfinger and Thunderball turned it into the most famous car in the world. And it's also the most successful example of product placement ever. But before we go into all that secret agent stuff, what's this legend actually like to drive?
First things first, when the DB5 was launched in 1963, it cost a monster £4,000, which bought you 2 E-Type Jags. And the E-Type was faster, more technically advanced, and just drove better. This was basically a rebodied DB4 with a slightly larger engine and a plusher interior. And this weighed nearly 1.5 tons. I don't want to rain on your parade. I don't want to spoil the Bond mythology. But it's just not a great car to drive. The clutch is really, really heavy. The gearbox, you wonder which gear you're in sometimes. The steering is dead and lifeless. Whisper it not, but the DB5 feels a bit edgy and delicate.
But finesse is not what the DB5 is all about. This car is best on a wide open road with a wide open throttle. The 4-litre straight-six sounds glorious. The cabin is pure heaven, and the detailing wouldn't look out of place in a Bentley. Only Aston Martin would put the switch to open the twin fuel filler caps up here in the roof lining. So just how did the DB5 become a global icon of cinema and the highest pinnacle of product placement? The story is as complicated as one of Ian Fleming's novels. Pay attention, 007, this is important.
It's amazing to think now, but Aston Martin initially refused to lend Eon Productions a DB5. They'd lent cars to the movies before, had them damaged and only got a couple of seconds of screen time, so were very, very reluctant. But Ken Adam, the production designer, and John Steers, the special effects supervisor, were adamant that they wanted a DB5. They went to the general manager of Aston Martin, convinced him that a product placement deal would be a good thing, and he finally relented. The backstory there that everybody denies is that Aston Martin were losing money on every single DB5 they made. So if they had a product placement deal and sold more DB5s, they would lose more money. But either way, Bond eventually got his Aston. It left Aston Martin as a bog standard DB5, but when it went through these gates, it became a legend.
This is Pinewood Studios, home of the James Bond series, and in 1964 the home of the Goldfinger production team.
The car that came through those gates was a red prototype DB5. So in 6 weeks flat, the special effects team resprayed it, silver birch, and fitted all those brilliant gadgets. The Browning submachine guns, the deployable oil slick, the bulletproof screen, and of course, the ejector seat, to name but a few. The bill got really, really quite terrifying, and the producer, Harry Saltzman, was worried about his $45,000 little box of tricks and said he didn't want it being used in high-speed chase sequences. So Aston had to supply yet another faster DB5 for that. There are also 2 other DB5s used for the promotional US tour, but BMT 216A is the one that we saw most in all those close-up stunt sequences. I told you it was complicated, 007.
It was time and money well spent because Goldfinger was the first Bond blockbuster, grossing $125 million at the box office.
I went to see the premiere of Skyfall, and in the scene where you see the original DB5, the entire cinema applauded. People were standing up. People were crying, right? Now, that's pretty weird. They were crying because there was a car in a film that they recognized from another film they saw when they were young. And you say, how could a car possibly be this meaningful to them? But it is.
It's pretty special because it's a character in itself, you know what I mean? It's you know, I wouldn't say it's as big as Bond, but it's pretty close.
It's not kind of sexy in the sort of more obvious way that a Ferrari or an E-Type Jag might be. It's a little bit more refined and slightly more restrained than that.
My favourite DB5 memory was from Skyfall, and I had to take Daniel out into the open roads in the DB5. And it was just surreal that we're sort of driving in, you know, they're all like, right, because the car's worth whatever it's worth. You've got Daniel in the car, who's worth whatever it's worth. And then you're just driving down the road, stopping at a set of traffic lights, and you can see people pulling up, looking in the car going, this geezer thinks he's James Bond flying to the DB5 or something like that.
You'd think that after half a century, some of that glamour would have worn off, but the public's affection for this legendary car is as strong today as it's always been. The Aston Martin DB5 is from every angle utterly exquisite. The 007 connection has made it the poster car for every budding teenage secret agent. This is Stoke Poge's golf club, where Sean Connery arrived in the Aston to play that famous golf match with arch nemesis Auric Goldfinger. And there's a final tragic twist to the Bond DB5 story. That first legendary gadget car was sold by Aston Martin in '69 and eventually ended up with a collector in Florida. In 1997, it was stolen from a hangar in Boca Raton and to this day has never been found.
But for you and me, the DB5 was the transport of our teenage dreams. Over the years, drifting off to sleep, this was the car that we fought and chased the forces of Cold War evil and won. As super spies in short trousers, we used all those gadgets to save the world and impress and seduce movie starlets. It's a great tragedy that that original Bond Aston may have been lost forever. But those high-speed DB5 teenage dreams, they'll never leave us.
That must have been so much fun. I mean, it is the most beautiful car, but I can't believe a real pig to drive.
It is a bit of a dog. But, come on, I was so lucky because there can be few people who have driven round that Pinewood lot in a DB5, down Goldfinger Avenue, where they shot the actual bits of the car chase with the mirror in Goldfinger. I mean, look, it was an honour. But I kept thinking, as I'm driving that car, I wonder if that lost Bond DB5 is out there somewhere, owned by a supervillain who's in his cave, just
an
like
actual true supervillain's got
broking
it.
I just hope it hasn't been broken up for parts and it still exists.
Can you imagine? That would be absolutely
$5 million
devastating.
the insurance company paid out for that car, and that was quite a while ago.
Unbelievable. So
Probably worth 10 now.
A lot more. I was about to say double. Anyway, what a start, a blockbusting start. But stay with us. Still to come from Sheffield with Love, Alex Riley is going to show you how you can buy a car, a Bond car, for under £5,000. Come on,
Must we?
Quint, really?
Coming up, our James Bond special continues as Will Best snoops around a 007 lair. Super spy Alex Riley is on the case of a £5,000 Bond car.
Oh, it's a Bob.
Daniel Craig's stunt driver, Ben Collins, drives Bond's first Aston.
Not bad for an old pensioner.
And Jodie goes all Roger Moore in a Lotus Esprit S1.
All of that still to come. Now, when it comes down to a car expert, Quentin very much thinks of himself as one of the originals. A little bit like, I suppose, Sean Connery is to Bond. So we're always on the lookout for a younger, fitter model. So our Daniel Craig, Will Best, is off on his very own undercover mission.
Have you ever noticed that us roving reporters never get invited into Quentin and Jodie's lair? So I've decided to find my own lair, and I think it might just be so much better than theirs. And it's packed full of every conceivable gadget that any hero or villain could ever want. For example, imagine I wanted to smuggle some gold across international borders. All I'd need to do is fabricate parts of this Rolls-Royce with said gold, and nobody would ever know.
Actually, one man would. The inimitable James Bond. For over 50 years, he's defeated the world's most evil villains, thanks in no small part to Q Branch's vehicles and gadgets. And Bond in Motion is the largest collection of these ever assembled.
Look at this, the Aston V8 from the Living Daylights. Now, let's just imagine for a second, I'm chilling in my lair, suddenly the floor turns to ice and I get attacked by an angry mob of Cold War Russians. What better way to escape than on the love child of a British sports car and a sled? Except maybe a cello case. Ah! I'm also covered if I need to check out a volcano that I think isn't filled with molten lava, but is in fact the secret lair of supervillain Ernst Stavro Blofeld. Little Nelly. And if I wanted to, say, I don't know, do some sneaky reconnaissance on evil, web-fingered mastermind Carl Stromberg's secret underwater headquarters, what would I use then? Obviously, Q Branch's Wet Nelly, a fully submersible Lotus Esprit first seen in The Spy Who Loved Me. This lair has got everything. The skidoos of unfortunate henchmen, they didn't make it. The V-12 Vanquish that took them out. Oh, look at this. From the big stuff to the little stuff. Timothy Dalton's passport. That's exciting. Oh, all the watches. Yeah, they're not working, but they're props, aren't they? The Acro Star from Octopussy. Don't know if you remember, but this actually came out of a horse's bottom. The Cougar on Her Majesty's Secret Service. Quite rare to see a car like this being driven by Bond, but then on Her Majesty's Secret Service was a bit of an anomaly. Oh, yes, now these are two of the newer ones. This is from Quantum of Solace, and this is the DBS that broke the record for the most flips and barrel rolls a car has ever done in a stunt with air-assisted propulsion. It's an amazing scene in Casino Royale. The jetpack. You see that first in Thunderball, and you see it again in Die Another Day as a little in-joke. Classic. And of course, no Bond lair is complete without a DB5. For more than 50 years, the exciting world of super spy James Bond has been imagined by some very talented and brave people. Just being amongst all their incredible inventions is a dream come true for a fan like me. And, more importantly, I think we can all agree, this lair is so much better than Quentin's.
No, Will, you are wrong. My lair is better because I have an aeroplane in a wind tunnel. Beat that, baby. But it was a very impressive collection.
It was, and that jetpack, ever since I first saw the Bond with it in, I just wanted to have a go on that. How cool.
You're just danger girl, aren't you?
I am. Like a little bit of danger, but I suppose it would be rude. I can't wait for your facial expressions on this one. To not let Alex Riley show us how you can buy a Bond car for under £5,000.
I thought we had shaken him off.
Shaken him off, Mr. Bond, just like your martini.
Don't say it. You were going to say shaken, not stirred?
No, actually, I was about to say our man from Sheffield on a mission undercover.
Super spies always have the latest gadgets, the hottest women, and they always jump out of planes. But these days, you need the resources of a supervillain or a diamond smuggler to afford a Bond car like Aston Martin's DB5. You needn't worry, though. There's still a real Bond car you can buy for less than £5,000.
It's a Triumph Stag, of course. You remember from Diamonds Are Forever? Bond, Sean Connery, is on his way to the port of Dover to meet Miss Moneypenny. He's about to travel to Amsterdam under the cover of diamond dealer Mr. Franks. And what car does Mr. Franks drive, aka James Bond, Sean Connery? Yes, that's right, a saffron yellow Triumph Stag.
To be a genuine and recognisable Bond car, like the Stag is, you need three key ingredients. The first one is Italian styling, and the Stag was styled by Giovanni Michelotti, whose previous work included the Maserati 3500 Spider and Alpine A110. Molto bello! Secondly, you need protection, because Bond attracts as many bullets as he does beautiful women. And the Stag arrived from the factory with both a hard top as well as the soft top. Now, the hard top wasn't bulletproof, but it certainly offered a lot more protection to a knife-wielding assassin than the soft top ever did. Finally, you need a macho name, like DBS, Volante, Esprit, Cougar, Stag. It's a very macho name, and ideal for a man who loves rutting as much as Bond does.
The Stag story begins in 1964, when designer Michelotti persuaded Triumph's Harry Webster to give him a Triumph 2000 saloon on which he could do something special to show off his skills. What Michelotti came up with was drop-head gorgeous. I mean, just look at it. Webster, of course, ordered full-scale development of the car. The Triumph Stag looked like a surefire winner, but in classic British Leyland style, they managed to cock it up.
So, you had a great Italian design and a British sports car company at the top of its game. What could possibly go wrong? Well, the brand new 3-litre V8 engine for starters. It may have been modern, compact and powerful, but cost-cutting and poor manufacturing meant that reliability was shocking.
Positively shocking.
Timing chains broke, cylinder heads corroded, water pumps failed. Overheating became the bane of Stag owners' lives. In fact, it's a wonder that James Bond ever made it to Amsterdam. The Stag's reputation was in tatters. So sales never took off, and in 1977, the Stag's license to thrill was finally revoked. Which is a shame, because the Stag is the most underrated and undervalued Bond car of them all. Now, some might say that it's not really worthy of brand 007, that it's the automotive equivalent of George Lazenby, but they'd be wrong. And actually, George Lazenby was brilliant, because here you have a real-life Bond car that looks gorgeous and sounds amazing for just £5,000. In fact, spending 5k on a Stag might be the closest any of us ever get to living the life of a super spy. What's that noise? It's coming from the back. Oh, it's a bomb. Okay. I've got some pliers. Now, it's always the red, isn't it? It's always the red. It's always the red. So I've got go with the green. Go with the one you first thought of. Red.
Oh, good. He's been blown up into tiny little pieces.
I thought you might like that one. That was especially that. And I love the bit when he was doing the free falling out of the plane with the hairdryer going, you know, special effects to the highest point there. Anyway, don't worry, Alex Riley will be back. Our special agent number 3.
Special agent, I will be ringing his agent to tell him he's overacting to a ridiculous degree.
No, he's not. But, I mean, the point is that you can get a James Bond car, a Sean Connery Bond car for under £5,000. I mean, that's not a lot of money, Penny.
It's not a lot
Like
of
that
money,
one.
Penny. Yes, I get the joke. Because Stags are, what's the word I'm looking for? A bit crap?
Yes, a bit
They
crap.
are unreliable. That engine will boil over, and those early ones are very, very rusty. And Alex just glosses over these minor details. I'm sorry, call me old-fashioned, but you need to know these things. They're £5,000 for a reason, and they are quite difficult to sell. And I'm
Mr.
not grumpy.
You took the words straight out of my mouth, Mr. Grumpy.
Anyway, let us move on. Coming up, a man who, after us, has the second best job in the world.
We've teamed up with Aston Martin to give you the chance to win a brand new 4.7-litre, 420 brake horsepower Meteorite Silver V8 Vantage. The car will be hand-built here at the Aston Martin HQ in Gaydon, where it will be presented to the lucky winner. And as this is no ordinary car, we'll include an Aston Martin performance driving course to ensure you're prepared for its full potential. So, for your chance to win, call 0906 515 5555 or text Vantage to 85555 or post name and phone number to Vantage, PO Box 7557 Derby, DE10NP. Entrance must be 21 or over, calls cost no more than £2 from a BT landline, calls from other landlines and mobiles may cost considerably more. Texts cost £2 plus one message at standard network rate. Lines close at midday on the date shown on screen and 3 days later for postal entries. For rules and winners, go to channel5.com/win.
Coming up, Bond stunt driver Ben Collins in 007's very first Aston Martin. Bruno Senna attacks our track in another classic racer. And I drive the ultimate 1970s Bond car.
All that's still to come, but now yet another Aston Martin with even more James Bond intrigue.
I'm Ben Collins, and for the past 2 James Bond movies, I've been a stunt driver for 007.
And this is the closest thing to Bond's current ride, the Aston Martin Vanquish. But Bond's first ever Aston wasn't actually the DB5, fitted with Q's infamous ejector seat.
This is the Aston Martin DB2-4. Launched in 1953 and incidentally the world's first hatchback. But more importantly, it's the car that inspired James Bond creator Ian Fleming to swap 007's allegiance from a Bentley to an Aston in the Goldfinger novel.
There are telltale, non-standard features that give away that this car was Ian Fleming's inspiration for Bond's first Aston. If you check out these steel-reinforced bumpers at the front, they're ideal for smashing a baddie out of the way on the open road. But it's when you climb inside, things become eerily familiar. Up here, mounted into the dashboard, is a two-way radio connection. And this is a Halder device that rally drivers use to measure their speed across distance. Fleming turned it into a homing device. But it's under here, in this centre console, that things get really exciting, because under this there's a secret compartment with enough space to store all the things a secret agent would need. However, there's an extra secret shelf that Fleming realised had enough space to harbour a Walther PPK. And with all this mega Bond heritage, it'd be pretty rude not to take it for a spin. This is an old-school GT car capable of chasing villains with delusions of world domination across multiple continents. Gets you from 0 to 60 in about 12 seconds after another burbling, with a top speed of 120 miles an hour, courtesy of an engine that, ironically, comes from a Bentley, a Lagonda, straight 6. 150 horsepower, if that. Not bad for an old pensioner. Once you get up to speed in this thing, it does feel very luxurious and sedate. Because actually when you sit in here, it's like sitting on your sofa. said, the handling does leave something to be desired. Even at very low speed, the car wallows around something chronic. You're not going to be very good in a car chase situation. The brakes, a bit like sending a love letter. It takes a very long time before you get any sort of exciting response. No seat belt, so if you flip this over, you're probably going to pop through. Well, it's not an ejector seat yet, but it will be when you punch through the ceiling. It's a wonderful car, though. It's so full of charm. You can feel everything. You can feel the connection with the road. The engine's beautiful. It's got this fantastic burble. You can really hear the energy of the era. The story behind this car being the inspiration for James Bond's first Aston Martin is a long one, but it's worth paying attention. This car was originally owned back in the 1950s by squadron leader Philip Ingram Cunliffe Lister. You try saying that after a few vodka martinis. Now it's him that made all the really cool modifications and put the gadgets in this car so they could take it on international rallies. Now it's believed that Cunliffe Lister was very good friends with Ian Fleming's next door neighbour. Stay with me here. And that Fleming went round to their house, saw this car, saw all the incredible modifications at the time he was planning the Goldfinger novel.
Now, hardcore Bond fans will be watching this and thinking the Aston Martin in the Goldfinger novel was a DB3, and you'd be right. However,
Fleming always wanted Bond to have the very latest kit, from his shoes to his cars to his guns. Everything had to be accurate and it had to be cutting edge. So when it came time to write the Goldfinger novel, the DB24 was already at the end of the line as being replaced by the Mark III, 3 being in Roman numerals. And this is where Fleming made an uncharacteristic mistake, because in the book he called the car the DB3, again in Roman numerals, when it should have read Mark III. So hopefully that settles it forever as far as the hardcore Bond fans are concerned. It's been amazing to spend the whole day in this incredible car. Its influence has really been immeasurable, not just on Ian Fleming's imagination, but for hundreds of millions of Bond fans all over the world. Would I swap it for Bond's modern-day car? That's an easy one.
We are so on a roll in this show. We have got the DB24 that inspired Fleming, that went in the novel, that inspired the DB5, driven by the man who teaches Daniel Craig to drive and does his stunts. How good is that, ladies and gentlemen? You saw it here first.
Doesn't get any better, but it might get better because we have our very own Aston Martin Le Mans driver in the most beautiful shape of Bruno Senna. So let's go over to our track to Jack Nicholls to see how he gets on.
Nestled on the infield of the classic banked Brooklyn circuit lives this. A modern 1,200-metre handling track. With its mix of challenging corners, it's perfect for this man, Bruno Senna, to lap some classic race cars. So let's find out what he's driving this time.
Right, let's see what's under these covers. Oh, it's coming nicely. Ah, Aston DB3. I drive one of the modern ones of these. I wonder what it feels like. It's like proper historic machine. Let's do it. Come on.
Introduced in 1951, the Aston Martin DB3 was designed and built purely for racing. It was powered by a 2.9-litre Lagonda straight-six engine that produced 163 brake horsepower. In the early 50s, the DB3 took on Jaguar C-Types and Ferrari 340 Americas at Le Mans and Sebring. But its moment in the sun came when it won the Goodwood 9 Hours in August 1952 in the hands of Peter Collins and Pat Griffith. Time for the qualifying style lap for the Aston Martin DB3. Across the line comes Bruno Senna, down towards the first corner flick into the right-hander, and it'll be a challenge for this car to match the E-Type, which is the quickest car we've seen around this Brooklyn circuit. But anywhere in the low 51s would be a good sort of lap time, especially for a car of this age. In the early 50s, the DB3 built. We're coming up towards the halfway split already. A 22.964 is the time to beat in that middle split. Across the line he comes, and it's a 24.18, so only just over a second down on the E-Type. This could put it in contention with the likes of the Mustang and the Austin Healey. 2 corners to go now for Bruno Senna. Just the long right-hander. Fantastic in these open-top cars, how you can see him working the wheel as he comes through the never-ending right-hander. The back end stepping out a little bit as he gets it onto the finish straight. The E-Type's time of 48.284. Across the line comes the Aston Martin DB3, a 51.026. That is impressive for a car of that age. Let's see what Bruno thought.
It was much more hard work than I ever imagined. You know, the track is very twisty and the car is moving around a lot. So I was trying to push hard, and then you have to understand how much the car slides. And these old tires, they are awesome to drive. Really good fun.
How amazing to see a car driven like that right to its limits. But the mighty Jaguar E-Type stays at the top. For the DB3 goes to a very respectable third place, missing out on second place by 0.02 of a second, which means from second to fifth are all separated by half a second.
That DB3 is just pure poetry in motion. Stay with us though, because unbelievably we have yet more cars with James Bond connections.
Don't miss your chance to win a Meteorite Silver Aston Martin V8 Vantage, which will be presented to the lucky winner at the Aston Martin HQ. To enter, just call 0906 515 5555 or text Vantage to 85555. Or post name and phone number to Vantage, PO Box 7557 Derby, DE10NP. Entrance must be 21 or over. For rules and winners, go to channel5.com/win. It's nearly time for Jodie to drive the car that inspired Q Branch's Wet Nelly.
Being a Bond special, I've been having a little perusal around the internet to find some Bond-inspired car ads. So basically, let me get my weapon out to show you. Most of them are inspired, but a lot of them are completely ripping them off. Let's have a look. Okay. Check out the special effects.
But that's the point. That was a pre-special effects world. That is
Of
big
course
budget,
it was.
80s TV ad, and you've got a plane literally as close as you would ever want to be to the roof of that Peugeot.
More astonishing than, I mean, I can't believe it literally touches the ground and then skims over the top of the Peugeot.
Ads like that cost millions.
Right, now it's time for one last legend that will always be associated with 007.
Hidden deep within the vaults of Q Branch lies a decommissioned relic of the Cold War. An amphibious craft used by the world's greatest spy to halt nuclear Armageddon.
Now, this would hardly be a Bond car episode without showing this, would it? I know, they're not all submarines, and especially not this one. So I'm going to take her out on the road.
There is so much more to this car than being MI6's famous mini sub.
This car is the ultimate survivor. It was in production for over 28 years and went on to be Lotus's longest ever production road car. In 1970, Mr. Lotus, Colin Chapman, realized he needed a car with the looks of a Ferrari or a Lamborghini. So he called in a design legend.
Giorgetto Giugiaro, later to be named Car Designer of the Century, was the man responsible for the DeLorean, the Maserati Ghibli, and the BMW M1. He designed the Esprit in the shape that defined the 70s, the wedge. Giugiaro's design flair, coupled with Chapman's engineering genius, was a sports car dream team. The way the world found out about this car was genius too.
The story goes that PR guru Don McLaughlin took a pre-production Esprit, parked it outside of James Bond producer Cubby Broccoli's office, and the rest was history.
The Spy Who Loved Me, starring the Esprit mini-sub, was released in the summer of 1977 and went on to gross over $185 million at the box office and ingrained the Esprit into the minds of a generation of car lovers.
It's not just the awesome looks that the Lotus Esprit has that cemented its reputation.
It's the handling too. Chapman engineered a super lightweight body with a 2-litre 4-cylinder engine, giving it a 0 to 60 time of 8.4 seconds and a top speed of 133 miles an hour.
You can feel all the weight is in the back and there's nothing on the front, so I can imagine you getting in a bit of trouble with her because she is very flighty. But you always feel in control, which is weird. You kind of think, oh no, we're not going to make it, and she's still there, which is quite surprising. The steering's very light, the gearbox is fantastic, she's very responsive, but personally for me she hasn't quite got enough grunt, but I'm a bit of a speed queen. Now I'm pushing her a little bit more. You can certainly feel the old back end coming out a little bit, which for me makes it a lot more enjoyable.
As those 28 years of production went past, the Esprit changed with posher interiors, turbochargers and spoilers diluting Chapman's handling-based vision. So if you're going to go and buy one, and I highly recommend you do, make sure you get an S1. It is the real deal. James Bond's car and a slice of 1970s futuristic glamour.
The Lotus Esprit is an underrated classic car. Old stick-in-the-muds like Quentin won't like it because of its fiberglass body, but details like that is what made it so original. It's what made it so nimble and so quick. And also being made out of fiberglass meant that it didn't rust when it went underwater. Pretty handy, that.
Some fine wheel action there, Jode.
It was so much fun. It was pouring with rain, so it made a little bit slippery, so when the rear end went out, which it did quite a bit, but the car just corrected itself. I mean, it really is lovely. I had a big smile on my face.
Very controllable, but also some talent being displayed there.
Oh, why, thank you, Mr. Wilson.
Sadly, we don't have all the time in the world, so it is time to die another day. But never say never again, and I leave you with this quantum of solace.
You're just reeling off Bond titles. Can't you just say goodbye?
I know, but you only live twice. Goodbye.
Tonight at 9, the return of the Hotel Inspector, and her first challenge is the Fieldhead in Cornwall, where the view doesn't quite make up for the chaos inside. Next, a real-life horror story. The new Last Days begins with Mary, Queen of Scots.